This is the second part of the first project, the Monogram project. If you weren't able to do this project earlier, then
Mhm.
actually check the first part of this project. It has a slideshow and a video explaining. It kind of goes through some of these slides on what are some of the history of monograms, and then how we see them today. Um, and there are some videos in there to kind of help you with the process, how to be creative. It shows you a little bit of my sketch, and it goes down into what a professional does, someone who actually professionally designs at the moment. So you don't need to have any experience. This is all line drawings and it's all really basic. And so we're going to start by showing you what I actually did. And obviously, I actually started this sketch last class. And basically, the last project, and I showed you, I started with WAS, and then I started putting them together. So the basic difference between a monogram and a monogram and just your initials is your monogram itself becomes almost like a symbol. So just remember things like Gucci and Jean Saint Laurent and all these different brands. You can't always tell what the letters are. Sometimes they're so abstract that they just become an image on their own. So I started off with WAS and I progressed. I changed sizes of things. So there's a couple things you could do with your logo, right? You could change the size, you could change the angle, and then and you could change different things, meaning you can make the A bigger and make the other letters smaller. So trying to start out simply and then just changing two, three things only makes it a lot easier to be creative and not get too lost in it. And what I mean too lost is that all of a sudden you just start doing stuff and you're not even sure what you're doing anymore. So starting off simple, just change the size and the placement and the angle. Start with those three things as you go. And as you see, I got to this. This is my final right here for this design. And then I started with a curved version. And then I just went from there on and on and on till I got to these two. So I want to go through the process of basically showing you what this will look like in the next step. The next step, you're refining your two finals. I'm going to refine number 17 over here, that W-A-Z, which my initials are actually WAS, but I decided to change it to a Z because that's how you pronounce was. Was does not was, it's was. And that's, so I actually said, a Z is actually not a bad thing. So if people think this is a Z, I'm okay with that. So I want to show you basically, even though I'm working in Photoshop, obviously the reason I'm working in Photoshop is so you could see me sketch while I do this. So I want to show you, I want to get rid of this page. And here is the actual piece that I'm going to be focusing on. Now, I'm not really like, I don't think it's an amazing design, but I think it's interesting. So that's what I'm going to go with. And so next to it, I'm going to start just sketching out an idea, right? I'm going to do the same design. And I'm using, if you could draw lightly, what if I made the A big again, like I did before? And when I'm starting to notice what it looks like, and then I start to figure out I don't like this line right here. I don't like it. So instead of a line, I'm going to put a dot. This is actually inspired by a graffiti artist. His name is Veo, and VEO, and you probably see his graffiti all over Hartford and Connecticut. And he has this dot in his that replaces a line in his letters. And so I like that. So I'm going to play around with that dot. And then once I did this, and I did a sketch before, I started to notice that this really looks like a crown. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not royalty or anything, but I mean, the crown is an interesting thing. It also looks like mountains. So I would say it looks like a crown, mountains. And, sometimes figuring out what it looks like and then, or what you want to make it look like. So let's say you're a person that is into, and this goes into the third part of the project, but let's say you're someone who's into hiking. Well, if you want to make your initials look like mountains, this design is perfect for that because you could turn these to make them look a little bit like mountains. And so keeping an idea of what it looks like, right, is really, really important. So I'm going to take this design and I'm just going to curve a base. And then I'm gonna take the same design and I'm just gonna use that line to form it as a curve, right? Now, obviously, I would get rid of this curve afterwards. And once again, we are not trying to get detailed and perfect. Right now, this is uneven. I could see it. It's not perfect. It's uneven. But I mean, I could change it. It's not a big deal. You're not trying to figure it all out now. But I do like it being curved. I think it took an interesting idea and now it looks nice, right? So now maybe I'll do this nicer and go here just to see what it would look like. Maybe each one gets higher. And right now I'm being inspired by a crown, right? And then I have that little dot for the A. So as I erase this and I erase the lines in the middle, kind of like it. But you know what? I kind of like that line and that curved line. And so I don't know. Right now, this is the idea now. And so if I do add that curved line, maybe I could separate it. And now it almost looks like the crown on a Statue of Liberty. So what if I made some of these thicker? And then this is one thing now you're going to be doing. For the final, you want to figure out how thick your lines are going to be. You don't want, even though it's a sketch, now you want to figure out what would be nice. Thicker lines, thinner lines. And so I like the combination. I like that this line is thinner than this line. So maybe I'm going to play with that continuously. And, with calligraphy, that's what calligraphy is. It's really playing around with the thicks and thins of the lines. So you're learning basically the basics of design. And you might be thinking, like, why do I need to learn? This makes no sense. I mean, I'm not going to be a designer. I said, yeah, but you one day might have a business. You one day might have an opportunity to figure out your design for your business. And you don't want someone coming up to you with an idea and you have no clue on how to understand it and how to decipher it. You also want to understand that companies are out there producing designs and marketing all to make you see these things. So it's interesting to learn how to communicate visually. So I like the thin and the thicks. I like that. I think it's making it look more 3D. And I mean, it's a huge difference what I have here compared to what I have here. Now, if you were one of the people that saw this and go, "Ugh, Wes can't design. Look at that. That's ugly." But then you're starting to see this and you like it, then you're starting to appreciate the process. That it's not about how perfect your first idea is, but how much better it can get if you just start learning the steps, right? So the main steps in the beginning, you start off with a sketch, basic lines. You're just figuring out composition. You're using size, you're using angles, and you're using placement. So placement is like composition, right? You're figuring that part out. Then you start taking that sketch. You could still change the size. You could still change the placement. You could still change the comparison size, the changing in size. But now you can start adding one detail, which is the thickness of the letters. Now, we're still not worried about color. We're still not worried about other things. We might add things to this. One of the ideas, if I want to keep pushing the idea of a crown, is what if there was some dots on some of these, almost like a crown. Now, the only thing about having these is that it takes away now what this is. This is supposed to represent the bar of the A, right? And so if you put too many dots, this will start just looking like a dot and not like the letter A. So that's something to think about as you keep going. So I don't like these dots, at least not a colored in dot. Maybe if it was an empty dot. And then you know that this dot looks different than this dot. And maybe make this dot bigger. So now that it stands out. Now, other ideas that I started to look at, and I'll show you the sketches that I did earlier. Let's get rid of this one. Similar idea. Excuse me. Similar idea. But then I started playing, I don't know if I showed it, but there's one where I started going vertical. and I took this whole thing and I turned it to the side. But you can see right here, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to curve back, curve that S again. So I like this one, and I start to curve the S. I even just really quickly said, what if I curve the whole thing? Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. It doesn't look great. It doesn't, I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, I could rework it. And maybe I'll do that right now. Maybe if this is a combination of the first one and then the second one. I mean, if I'm doing it slower, I love the dot idea. So the dot idea, I'm sold on. And I'm not sure how I would do this part. But that's an idea. It looks like some crazy alien language. So I don't know yet, but this is kind of like the exploration idea. Now, what could I do to make this better? How could I make this make more sense? What if these were all the same height instead of how I did it? So this is the thought process. This is how you learn to improve your thinking skills. You learn to not just do what is comes natural, but you actually search through it, and you search through your thoughts, and you actually teach yourself. One of the biggest problems that a lot of students have in school is that they want everything to come easy and natural. So someone gives you a project, and if you don't feel like you can naturally answer or do that project without real thought, you start thinking, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not smart at this, I'm not smart enough for this, when the whole idea is that you shouldn't be a natural at what you're doing. You should be learning and thinking and being challenged. That's what school is for. School is not to build a career. School is to build skills on how to think, how to process thought, how to answer questions, how to problem solve. And that's how you improve. And art can help you with some of those skills that other classes can't. So I know I always get on these riffs on philosophy on teaching, but hopefully you'll take a chance, take the next step. Tell me what you think. The check-in for today, it's May 13th, and today's check-in is, what do you think about the design that I did? Do you like the crown idea? I would like your advice. If this was a customer, before I go see a customer about my design, I'd actually talk to a bunch of friends who are not designers and a few that aren't even artists, and I would ask them about my design and ask them what they think about it, just to see how an average person would look at it if they saw it in a sign. Um, but if you have any questions, you can obviously contact me. Some of my students are using Schoology or using Google Classroom, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much, and have a great day.